Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I'm sorry to interrupt your good conversations, but as you settle in, we'll kick off our ceremony. It's a very special day for us in many ways, and I'm delighted to see so many of you here for this celebration because, of course, we're gathered to celebrate the appointment of Pathak-Norcia as the inaugural Psalm Pathak MD and Kalindi Pathak MD Professor of Anesthesiology. Anesthesiology has a lot of syllables in it for a chemical engineer, but I'm going to cut that out. I do want to acknowledge some special guests who are with us this evening. First, Stan Gerson, the Dean of the School of Medicine and our Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs, and you'll hear from him in just a minute. Also, I want to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Pathak, his daughter-in-law, Sushama, and Kalindi's brother, Dawakar Thati, as well as the many friends and colleagues of the Pathaks who have come to honor this special couple. And of course, we welcome our honoree, Dr. Norcia, and his wife, Susan, and their daughters, Kayla, Natalie, Jenna, and Lauren, and their sons-in-law, William and Christian. I'm glad we've got plenty of food for the reception. It's a nice crowd. Thank you all for coming. Dr. Pathak is a retired orthopedic surgeon and he's been a tremendous friend to this university. He established this professorship to honor his late wife, Kalinda, who was an anesthesiologist and researcher at Case Western Reserve University in the 1980s. In addition to being Dr. Pathak's devoted wife, Kalinda also was his lifelong partner in travel and especially in gardening. Dr. Pathak will share more about why this professorship is so important to him in just a few minutes. And at Case Western Reserve, professorships like the Pathak Professorship are a tremendous honor and a sign of the extraordinary respect we have for the recipient's scholarship and accomplishments. They enable us to recruit and retain some of the most talented medical researchers in the world. And these professorships also provide the necessary funding for faculty members like Dr. Norcia can obtain key laboratory and research equipment, conduct field work, and support and educate the next generation of students. We're thrilled to bestow this professorship upon Dr. Norcia and the company of his family and friends, and congratulations to you, Dr. Norcia. And at this time, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Pathak to the podium to share a few words. Dr. Pathak, please.
I will not be formal. I'm a straight-spoken man. I was born in 1933, which probably is ancient to most of you. However, my parents were very generous, and I'm carrying the same tradition. So if you ask me why this donation came, that's parental. Were there some people who stimulated me to do that? Yes. Amongst the audience today, there are some people. Well, first of all, let me not forget, I'm very thankful to the President for the kind remarks. That's very kind of you. Having said that, my parents, as I said, were very generous-minded. They did all kinds of things to stimulate me. And when I came to this country gave me so much. English is not my language. For example, I'm now almost 90, and when people look at me, they say, well, you're looking good, but they never say that I'm good looking. As I said, English is not my language, and you know that American English is different from English. I was born, as I said, in 1933. I had a very hectic life. 2 or 3 highlights of my life. Number one, me and my wife. Very proudly, we were both captains in the Indian Army. She was a damn good pistol shot. 98 pounds of nothing but good protoplasm. So we started our own hospital where me and my wife, we used to do upwards of 700 elective operations a year, which was a hell of a lot of operations. To cut the long story short, I used to treat poor people for absolutely free. I became so popular that the local politicians put murderers on me and my wife. So we closed down the hospital, and that's the reason why we came to this country. Among the people who are here is my daughter-in-law, Sushma Sathe. If you would please stand up for me. I have my brother-in-law, because my wife is gone. My brother-in-law, Divakar, is here. Why, my wonderful Randy Pistone is here. Randy, would you stand up? My wonderful friend, Jennifer Cole. As I said to you, my life was saved by my mentor, who is Neelam Gupte. She's just a friend, but just a wonderful person. She's here. Would you please? It all started with Chuck Miller. Chuck Miller was the coordinator. He subsequently left the university. He's elsewhere now, and very kind to grace the occasion at my request. Raj Singh is a friend of mine who has adopted me as his father. I don't know whether I do my duties well, but anyway. When it came to donation, I was with one of my friends, and he said to me that he has given 40% of his wealth as a donation. So I said, you count me in. And apart from my father's and my wife's desire, this gentleman, his name is Manohar Daga. He is here with his wife Chandra, and they were the ones who really kicked me into the act of donating. And I'm so grateful because this is a win-win situation. Where in the world, except in America, would you get a person to be able to donate gracefully, be acknowledged for that, and continue it in perpetuity? My God, that is something that you never get anywhere else, very rarely in the world. Now, Pathak-Norcia has accepted the professorship. He will be here, I guess. And he, I don't know whether I slipped or joked or whatever. Anyway, he has the legacy of carrying the Pathak name. I personally believe that the best donation is anonymous. However, I kept my name on that and Kalindi's name simply for one reason, and that is Pathak is a typical Indian name. I hope that with the name of Pathak, somebody will be induced from the Indian diaspora, from the diaspora from India, not India, to give the donations in the same light. I'm aware that I'm exceeding my time, but I can't stop it. This is my day, and the donation was up by, this ceremony has been up by 1 year. Why? Because there is a gentleman here by the name of Matthew Dolsack. Where the hell are you, Matthew? There you go. I told him that since I am 90, I'm going to be, so therefore, can you up the ceremony by 1, because I got one more installment yet to pay. Dean Gerson, who is here in the audience, immediately wrote back to me, "Your wish is my delight." And I'm quoting him exactly. And with all that, they upped this ceremony, which should have occurred next year, and I hope I live next year, but anyway, that's beside the point. In order to make the donations in a proper manner, I had to go through my accounts and this, that, or the other. And there is a gentleman here by the name of Michael Smith. He coordinated all my donations, and he's sitting in the audience too. I have some old friends here. Some of my friends could not come. I must have Leah Logio. There you go. She was also instrumental in all these decisions. And I think I'm missing one more name. Do you mind if I look it up? Even if you mind, I won't. Carol Moss, where are you?
She is on vacation.
Yeah. One of my wonderful friends, Dr. Sharma, is here. He is one of the top-notch internists, but much more importantly, his tough wife, who is sitting in the wheelchair, she's also here. And it's not an easy act to get from one place to another, and I'm grateful to you for being in my honor. Being the fact that I was in the Indian Army, which was British style, I'm going to leave this stage. Adios.
Thank you. Wait one second. As a token of our appreciation, we have for you this chair.
Well, thank you very much.
And this says, Shyam Pathak, MD, and Kalenda Pathak, MD, Professorship in Anesthesiology, 2023. Thank you very
Right,
much.
thank you very much. If I may take liberty, both me and we were tough guys, including 98 pounds of wonderful protoplasm. In India, we traveled on a Vespa scooter, 8,000 miles. A feat which very few people can do. I thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
Can I leave now?
We do meet some remarkable people in our lives. So now I welcome our Dean of the School of Medicine and our Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs, Stan Gerson, to the podium to share a few words. Stan, please.
I hope that we all leave here this afternoon in imagining we will have the memory we just witnessed. You'll notice that the President and I need notes, but Dr. Payak did not. So thank you, and I'm delighted both to be here this evening and to help further my welcome to this large crowd of supporters of the Pathak family and our anesthesiology community for the celebration of the establishment of the Shyam Pathak and Kalenda Pathak Professorship in Anesthesiology and the appointment of Pathak-Norcia as our first inaugural recipient. It's very special for a dean to be able to celebrate a professorship. Few things are more fun for a dean. You can imagine many things I get to do are more challenging. But to be able to support, honor, and engage our most successful and high-impacting faculty is what we're here to do, both for their commitment to scholarship in research and education, and to encourage their professionalism and their furthering of our goals. It allows us to keep our top talent, to remind them how special they are. And in the presence of Dr. Pathak, who was trained, if you will, in the English system, as he told us, I'll remind you that professorship started in academic institutions in the Renaissance, King Henry VIII, 1540 to be exact. The Regis Chair of Civil Law, the first in the United States, was in 1721. The Hollis Professorship in Mathematics and Natural Philosophy, now thankfully held by a woman at Harvard University in the Divinity School. The oldest chair in the School of Medicine is a scant 122 years. The Hanna family established in 1901, and then a second chair, the Payne-Hanna family professorship established in 1906. And those of you of us who have been in Cleveland for a while realize that those endowment families tend to run together, so we often get these dual-named professorships. There are now more than 125 professorships in the School of Medicine. They're incredibly important to our maintenance of our faculty, and it reflects the incredible generosity and the trust long-term of our alumni friends and colleagues who help us build these resources to help support our faculty and to improve and pursue our mission, which is to improve global health by linking research to populations in a superb educational environment. We're celebrating our Masters of Science of Anesthesia program this evening, which is in fact a national program. And I'm delighted that we've selected Dr. Norcia as the holder of that professorship. The Masters of Science in Anesthesia program, MSA, was established in 1970, the second of its kind in the country. Originally, it was a baccalaureate degree, but it moved on to become a master's and a full-fledged postgraduate program. In 2008, we began to expand the program, moving it into the University of Texas Houston Medical Center with a class that graduated in 2010, and then adding Washington, D.C., with a class that started in 2012, and most recently in Austin, Texas, and you'll hear more about it from Dr. Norcia. But it's been a remarkable run for a program that's incredibly well respected across the country, and therefore really quite unique and a proud element for us to be able to celebrate. So I'm going to let Dr. Mark Popovich, chair of the department, introduce Dr. Norcia. He is the Helmut Gascorby Professor and Chair of Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, Department of Anesthesiology and Perioperative Medicine, where he's the anesthesiologist in chief and senior medical director for critical care medicine for University Hospitals Health System. Before taking on that role, he was an anesthesiologist and intensivist at the Cleveland Clinic, and I'm glad to see a number of our Cleveland Clinic faculty here with us, and had tenures as Surgical Intensive Care Unit Medical Director and the Director of the Critical Care Fellowship Program. And before that, before he moved from there to here, or in the middle rather, I should say, he was at Emory University School of Medicine, where he was a professor of anesthesiology and director of the critical care unit there. So without further ado, I'd like Mark to come up and introduce Dr. Norcia.
Greetings, everyone. Isn't this great? It's fantastic, right? Thank you, Dean Gerson. To our friends and colleagues, guests, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here to be part of a new professorship in anesthesiology at Case Western Reserve University. Because anesthesia, I was telling Jim Allshaker this earlier, because anesthesia by its design tends to be a very behind-the-scenes profession, honorifics in anesthesia are somewhat difficult to come by. So it is with deep gratitude that I, speaking for the department, join President Kaler and Dean Gerson in thanking Dr. Pathak in honoring his anesthesiologist wife, Kalindy, with this generous gift. For nearly 20 years, our inaugural professorship honoree has held an important role in the School of Medicine as a leader and champion of the anesthesiology assistant program. Just as a review, Dean Gerson kind of pointed this out already, but I'm going to just add on just a little bit. Anesthesiology assistants fulfill an extremely important role in anesthesia delivery in operating rooms across the country every day. Ground zero for the anesthesiology assistant movement actually occurred, as Dean Gerson pointed out, nearly 55 years ago when the concept first developed, nearly simultaneously at Emory University and right here at Case Western Reserve. Over the years, the AA profession has evolved to the current state, now in 21 states, where AA programs are required to be affiliated with medical schools, use medical school criteria for enrollment, and confer the degree of Master of Science in Anesthesiology. We have with us today, we're very fortunate to have with us leaders of the program. We have Joe Rafisi over here. We have Carrie, Kate, Dave are all here in celebration. We're very proud of them and happy to have them here with us today. Case's role in the AA profession has expanded, as Dean Gerson pointed out, to include the MSA conferring satellites in Texas and Washington, D.C. I'll go so far to say, this is my humble opinion that the MSA program is considered a jewel in the medical school here at Case. So when Dean Gerson called to let me know that he had chosen the program's longstanding executive director and nationally recognized AA champion as the inaugural professorship holder, I could not be more thrilled. Dr. Pathak-Norcia is a Northeastern Ohio lifer, earning a Bachelor of Science from the University of Akron and his medical degree from Case Western Reserve. He completed an anesthesiology residency and critical care medicine fellowship training here at University Hospitals, and since 1996, he has been a member of the department faculty. In 2020, he was promoted to associate professor. As executive medical director of the AA program, he has served on various national committees as leader in roles of physician AA liaison, development of education, and certifying requirements. He was instrumental in developing the aforementioned Case satellites and works tirelessly with leaders across the country in developing, helping those who are interested in developing programs in other states, starting up programs. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you, and please join me in congratulating the inaugural Shyam Pathak and Kalindi Pathak Professor in Anesthesiology at Case Western Reserve University, Dr. Pathak-Norcia.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a master of information technology. And for those of you who do know me, they know that's a lie. So here's mine. I would like to start off to thank everybody that showed up today. More specifically, my friends and my colleagues in the departments of anesthesia and surgery here at University Hospitals. Get to work with them all the time. It's a pleasure. Makes life really easy. I would like to thank the MSA staff and faculty who actually do all the work to keep the MSA program going on a daily basis. All right. Joe Rafisi is a program director, Carrie's assistant program director, and it's just too many to name them all, but very, very much appreciated. I'd like to thank Dr. Popovich and Dr. Gerson for all their consideration and the preparation for this presentation and for this professorship. It probably could have gone to a lot of people, but I'm very thankful that I was able to be included in this. I would also like to thank the Pathak family. I got to meet Dr. Pathak and his daughter about a month ago, and they are very kind, they're very generous. And the one thing I remember most from our lunch together is he looked at me and goes, "From now on, you and I are friends. You can come to my house anytime." And I'll never forget that. Thank you very much. But it's their kindness and their generosity that's brought us here today. Another individual that I like to thank specifically is Howard Neerman. He seems to be, anytime I had to make a decision, anytime I had to go to the next step, he was always there to help me. He was always there to support me, and sometimes he pushed me into it. Like the residency program. I owe you one. And last, I'd like to thank my wife and my daughters and my family for their support and their sacrifice. Because when I was working and doing all the things for the university and for the hospital, I wasn't with them. And I wish I could have been with them more, but this is what happens when you do things above and beyond the call of duty, I guess. So for me, this leg of the journey started 40 years ago this week when I showed up in Cleveland to take a job in Neil Cherniak's research lab. It was June of 1983. And I remember looking up at the sign outside the medical school. It said Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I thought, wow, that's awesome. Someday I'd like to be part of that. Well, as I was doing my career in research here, I applied for medical school, and eventually I got in. And I got into Case Western. And I was able to then go into surgery. But I only did that for a year because I ran into Dr. Neerman, and he had some great jokes. Plus, he also had some insight into what an anesthesiologist and a critical care specialist is all about. Dr. Rowbottom was also very instrumental in informing me of all the advantages. He was also a surgery resident at one time, so he sort of had an inside track. So after I joined anesthesia, I did critical care, and then at that time, it was tough to get into anesthesia jobs. They were not very plentiful. But Dr. Cascorby looked at me and probably felt sorry for me and said, "I'm going to give you a job." And I said, "You'll never regret it," and I hope he hasn't so far. Shortly after I became an attending, became residency director, co-director with Dr. Dave Wallace. And at that time, I learned how much I enjoyed training young people, watching them come in very naive and fresh and walk out as well-polished clinicians. I then had an opportunity to go to a lot of national meetings where I found out just how valuable AAs were. So when the position for medical director popped up, I had a discussion with Joe Rafisi, and we decided at that point, I think maybe this is something I'd like to do. So I jumped on that wagon, and before I knew it, we were flying down to Houston to talk to some people about starting a program. We had no idea how to start a program. We had no idea what we were doing, but we winged it. We came back to Case, and we were with the leadership. We discussed the proposition, and they looked at us and said, "You want us to give you how much money to go where and do what?" And we said, "Yep, that's what we want to do." They took a chance, and we did it, and that was step one. A couple years later, we went to DC, and we did it again. And last year, we started another program in Austin. So when I started as medical director in 2007, we were graduating about 12 to 14 students a year. Next year, we're going to be close to 90, and I'm very proud of that. I think the expansion of our program has made Case a brand, a national brand. We are now the probably preeminent AA training program in the country. There might be some people who want to argue, but I'd be happy to sit down or stand up and argue with you all night long. So that makes me very proud, very humble, and very honored to accept this endowed professorship from Dr. Kalindi Pathak and Dr. Shyam Pathak. Thank you very much.